the spiritualists used to recognize that all creation is a dance. The dance is a dance of contrasts. And we, the individual, the spiritual adherent, is right in between those jostling contrasts. And for an individual that just doesn't get it, that's not aware, this could be very chaotic and difficult. It seems random, it seems difficult. It would be akin to an individual that there were these two lovers and they were dancing on the dance floor, and this fellow is just put right in the middle between them. And it's very chaotic. They come closer to each other, they come apart, they shake, they move. And to an individual who's not hearing the music, they would kind of see these individuals going into epileptic seizures or spasms. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to them. It seems very chaotic, very difficult, very random, and generally distasteful. For individuals that can awaken to hear the music, they start to dance to the rhythm and the beat as well. And because they feel the rhythm and the beat and they're dancing as well, well then it's not chaotic. And the movements and the motions, they kind of fit and they flow to the rhythm of the music that's playing. The spiritual tradition is it's a process whereby one awakens the innate ingenuity of their soul's birthright, to be able to more acutely relate to the pulse of existence within its more abstract states. In other words, as children, we grow up here, very egocentric. We see the world only within our own circle, within our own eyes. Hopefully, the age 12, if you're a girl, a little bit later, if you're a boy, you awaken to abstract thought. And in that abstract level of thinking, you can begin to contemplate things that are not really that tangible, that are not just your imaginary friend, but you can reflect upon divinity and all sorts of things. Or alternatively, you can use that abstract cognitive capacity to imagine all sorts of dastardly things. You have freedom. But hopefully, as you grow, turn age 20, 21, you get even more capacity, cerebral capacity to be able to relate to the abstract. And this spiritual adherent, what we hope to do is we hope to give them the tools to which they can use these faculties to the utmost, to their utmost. And the number one gift that is given to you, the number one faculty that's given to you as a spiritual individual is your heart. The heart coherence, the emotional coherence. And you'll have a lot of people that go to seminaries. They'll sit under a tree for 20 years maybe. They'll go to the Himalayas, and they will think it is about studying and it's intellectual. And it's true, there is a studying and intellectual side. But that's more like how many limbs there are on a tree. But if the tree has no sustenance, the more limbs there are on that tree will be a big fan. The first wind that comes down, it will knock that tree over. It has no roots at all. But the individual that has an awakened heart, that has a strong heart coherence, that is the juice. That is the sustenance to which the network can sustain itself. And so no matter how big the gust, that tree is going to sustain itself. It's going to be strong. It's going to bear sweet fruit. So what I want to make clear here is that the spiritual tradition, the tradition of expanding to your greater ingenuity and soul, it's not an intellectual pursuit. It's very much, it's increasing the aptitude of your heart coherence, of your heart's authenticity, and all the intellectual stuff, it's only how to direct that. As if your heart was an instrument, and you're a soloist, and you have to play your solo. and play it in the right chord, in the right key, so people can sing along. The spiritual tradition as well was replete with analogies of romance, of love. This idea that there's an aspect of your soul that's latent in a material, linear frame of mind. And there's all this other ingenuity of your soul that is ripped apart and wants and yearning, reaching out, wants to rejoin, wants to dance, wants to be in love, but they're torn apart. They're starstruck lovers. And this idea of spiritual expansion, awakening, is a romance with one's own soul to one's greater soul. And as they reclaim the circuitry, and when I say circuitry, it's because it's like a circuit, and when the circuit's broken, it's pieces. But when you reunite a single circuit, it is singular, it's one. And so when they reclaim the circuitry of their own soul, then they are in an ecstatic space. And in that ecstasy, they can begin to recognize, again, without any shame, the divinity that resounds, that's playing its music aloud within all things, within all that they grace with their eyes. It's a very different perspective of spirituality than a lot of people are reading in paperbacks these days, but it is so very native, and it's to the soul, and it is specifically the reason why within the collective consciousness we can be in many cultures, great diversity. You can go to the Far East, you can go to the Middle East, you could go to India, you can go to Timbuktu. It doesn't matter. What they have in communion, in continuity, always is love. Is love and romance. They all have it. It's programmed, it's hardwired into the collective consciousness, because that is the high octave of rebounding, of reconnecting, of rushing back. When lovers, when they are apart, they draw apart. When they draw apart, it's like a rubber band. The more extremities, the farther the extremities they are apart, the more the passion to coalesce back together again. And this is the hardwiring in the collective consciousness of the native state of the soul that is in love. Okay. So now, let's discuss the now moment. Without getting into an extensive and long history, let's just say there's an experiment taking place. There are two lovers. One lover represents all that ever will be expressed. And the other lover is all that will forever go unexpressed. These two lovers, they dance, and they yield beautiful love. And in the complexity of that coalescing, there's all this juxtaposition and nuance that comes forth. And then in the dance, there are points at which the lovers, they draw apart. And there are points where they draw back into their arms with great passion. And when they draw back into their arms in great passion, those are periods of ecstasy. And in that ecstasy, they bear forth prodigal sons and daughters. They children of thought, children of knowingness, of knowledge. So when an individual has creativity or ingenuity or clarity of the heart, and a breaking free from the binds of your own cognition to see a greater vision, to be a visionary, to get a visage, be an artist, to a greater architecture, when individuals get these glimpses, it is a byproduct of the coalescing, of the lovemaking between all that ever will be expressed and all that never will be expressed. These two primordial lovers. And so, what the spiritualist is looking to do in each moment is the spiritualist is looking to help bring these two lovers together. Because it's through that comes forth the fuel of all creativity, that accelerates harmonic solutions when they are together, not when they're apart, not when there are those bitter days of negotiation. No, when there is that passionate, beautiful love making together. That is the spiritualist's perspective of what they're trying to do. So in each moment, the spiritualist will look at it and say, okay, let's focus on the divinity, let's say for archetype, for lack of a better archetype, God or Father or King, okay? Let's focus on that for a moment. So let's say we'll focus on all that's happened before, all that has transpired up to date, and then there's all that hasn't transpired yet but will in the future. Well, we know that all of creation erupted from a simple unity. And it brought forth incredible diversity and variation. And we also know that, it doesn't even matter. You can speak to any guy in physics today, whether they believe in the Big Bang or not. They believe that creation, all of creation, goes through cycles. It goes through a major expansion, and then it coalesces back together again, and it just happens again and again and again. It's the dance of life. They draw apart, they come together. They draw apart, they come together. So, for in the analogy, if there was a unified past that broke up into a spectrum of variation that resulted in nuance and polarities that allow individuals to experiment with individuality and consciousness and what is truly me and what I really represent and what is my real authentic choice, and most importantly, whether my love is true. Because through that variation, you get clarity if your love is true. You're not faking it. You were in a sign, number 23. You get to choose. You live in a world. There's a billion people. When you say, Sue, I love you, you mean, I love you. I had a choice, all these people. So that authenticity, that's part of the experiment of all creativity and creation. Okay, so we have all of the past. And we know, we can look at our own history. We know some of that past is pretty dark and dastardly. We know that there were points of history that are fairly primitive and harsh. So that's the price of that experimentation. And it's possible that if we align to the future unity, that reunification, then we'll have a better idea of how to harmonize with all the divergent streams and elements in our reality. But if we focus only on what seems prevalent in our consciousness, the challenges and the problems and all that minutia, so we're only giving sustenance, we're giving energetic momentum to the nexus, to the separation. Okay, so if we look at all of divinity and creation, we're looking at it as a love story, okay, and we're looking as the past is dancing with the future. and I'm a spiritualist in the ecstatic tradition. So what I want to do is, I want to help the past have a relationship with the future. I want to focus that energy in my now. I want to focus that communion in each now so that they kiss and they rub off on each other. They become a greater gestalt. They're both forever changed because of that magic. That's what I want. And the product of my experience in consciousness, channeling that ecstasy, channeling that coalescing in each instant, that is a powerful, radiating, creative force. And it sets our world anew in each instant. So the spiritualist is going to look at each instant and they're going to say, how do I bring forth this love? Even though I recognize that I could just leave it alone by default, and by evolution, eventually this is all going to come together. Because the farther they go apart, eventually there's more passion and the coalescing and the coming back together. But you know, that kind of turbulence, you know what, that kind of torque, you know, when you have that kind of torque, that separation so much, well, it can be very difficult, that moving so quickly, that can be very difficult for a lot of people. And in an abstract level, it can be very difficult on the collective consciousness. And to a vast degree, that's what we're experiencing today in our world, is this torque on the collective consciousness, is societies that want to attach themselves to what was, and societies that have no regard to what was, and we're only focused on what will be, and it's the juxtaposition and the dancing between these cultures without reverence, but you know, pushing very masculinely, charging forward, shock and awe. This is our approach. That's not pretty, and there are casualties of consciousness in that process. You know, when lovers are together, there's passionate surrender. Okay, there's no conquering. When love conquers, it is always passionate surrender. It's mutual surrender. It's one surrendering into arms of another. Any other way, it's not love. It can't be love, because there must be vulnerability. There must be a letting go in order to expand to a gestalt of something greater than the construct of what was before. So there has to be a surrender. And so when we focus on the now, when the mystics would focus on the now, they had all these permutations. They had, you know, equations, divine names, so to speak, different shorthand for how they would conduct exactly what I'm describing. And they would say, in this instant, I'm going to attach this part of God's name with this part of God's name. But it's absurd. Infinity can only have one name, infinity. And infinity comes in two flavors. It comes in expressed infinity and unexpressed infinity. And all the other stuff, these are just tags and equations we're giving to certain ideas and perspectives. And so for the modern spiritualist, when you approach the now, you know, you have to reduce the ego, and you have to do this, you have to do that. I'm not interested. I'm really not interested in deconstructing. I'm not interested in giving energy to deconstruction. I don't need you to monitor what your thought level is and how you're thinking and your thinking pattern is off or on. It is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant, because when you are passionately in love, you cannot think about anything else, and you're fully alive, and you're fully ready and primed, and you are far more powerful in your heart. Your heart is ringing like a beacon on the grid, because you are tapping into a heart coherence and potential that is transcendent. And all the other stuff, it fades away. It's like dead skin, and it's irrelevant. So what I would like to focus on here within the now is stay in a romantic, loving space and help coalescing what will be with what was. Like a love story, like a dance, like a kiss, like a circling, like a coalescing. And that way, the spiritualist recognized that as there's a communion taking root, then there will be a gestalt effect. They will collide. And in that singularity, it will release new potentials. New solutions will take root. Not that they weren't in existence, but they were not in existence within our peripheral, within our level of consciousness. And those are in that loving beacon as we increasingly hit that chord. Individuals in life, we all get a little bit lighter, we all get a little bit enlivened. And as we raise our antenna, as we raise the sensitivity of our own soul to that space, then we move up a little, it comes down a little. There are solutions everywhere. And all it alludes to is a greater harmony. It is creation from a simple unity to a more complex unity. It's the difference between one and all. And life is a lot more harmonic when everything has its space to be irreplaceable and needed. So that is the methodology of the spiritualist, is to focus in their mind on the love story, bringing the past to coalesce with the future, and through that release new ingenuity. This will work for any individual, even in a professional frame of mind. If they're an artist or if you are in the financial sector, because the number one irreplaceable skill in today's world, the number one asset that's more valuable than anything else today, is creativity. In an industrialized world where we can replicate anything, one thing we cannot program computers to do, and that is the ingenuity of the soul. There was a period in time where we thought the soul is irrelevant. We'll just make assembly lines. We'll take any artisan and we'll break down an action into 50 easy steps. And we'll put this guy making cogs, and this guy screwing the cog, and this guy polishing the cog. And that way, if any one individual says, hey, I'm not working unless I get a raise, or he gets sick, or he gets a better job somewhere else, he's easy to plug in. We could just get rid of him, put someone else. Anybody can polish a cog. It's not that complicated. And so what we did is we took artisans and we broke them down, and we said the ingenuity of the soul is not relevant. We are in mass production. And in this mass-produced world, what we want today, what is most valuable, is the ingenuity of the soul. And the more you can draw upon these techniques and filter them into your daily living, it does not matter how they express themselves in the linearity of it, because the music behind it rings out. And when someone is playing their song on key, you can't help but hum along. The whole world, the collective unconsciousness, begins to raise that much higher. And so the fruits of these techniques are manifold. I encourage all of you to engage in them lovingly in the weeks ahead, because they will provide you with a beautiful reunion, and it's very romantic. It's a romantic space, and you will be exhilarated by the beauty and innate ingenuity of your own soul.